Hey everyone, Business Development Manager Zach Dewhurst here, and this week's guest is Pete Bolsoni, owner of Same Day Tees, and today we're talking about how to select the right screen printing equipment. How's it going, Pete?
Good, Zach. Thanks for inviting me.
Pete, give us a little bit of background about Same Day Tees and your experience in the screen printing industry.
So I've been screen printer for most of my career. Um, right now, we're a contract decorator that specializes in fast service, but also digital printing, either DTG, DTF, or digital squeegee. But we still do a lot of regular screen printing, and that's kind of our niche, along with our online business where people will Google same day teas or fast teas and stuff like that, and we'll pop up on their searches, hopefully, and then they'll come to us for shirts.
And you've been in business, you've been screen printing, I think you said 40 plus years.
40,
You've seen a
yep,
lot of changes in those 40 years, haven't you? I mean, I've toured Pete's shop, and Pete has your traditional autos, but then he has the hybrid digital squeegees, which we're going to talk about, and then he has, an M&R Polaris, which is a rotary, a carousel DTG machine. Um, you've definitely have implemented some of the newer technology and evolved, haven't you, over the years?
yeah, and as digital started taking off, it was just a natural thing for us because we had been known for our simulated process, and we were doing a lot of it. And with sim process, it's still very artsy, where you're tweaking art and tweaking screens after you start the job. And with digital, you're pretty much going, straight to press, and you're not having to have all those changes with art and screens in the process.
For our viewers who have never done any screen printing, Pete, really screen printing, most of us think spot color printing. Each color in the design has a screen, and we're going to use a specific color to print that color for the design onto the product. Simulated process is essentially kind of acting like a digital printer in a way, in which you are burning a cyan, a yellow, a magenta, and a black, maybe also a light cyan and light magenta screen. And you're doing wet on wet to create that full color image. It's a lot more advanced simulated process printing, obviously, is than spot color printing, and the digital, has greatly simplified it. Um, that all sounds right to you, right, Pete?
Yeah, that sounds correct. Yeah.
I think the days, personally, I don't think that the big manufacturers are going to sell so many 16 head screen print presses that are geared towards simulated process. I mean, simulated process is great, but it's really for your high end fashion retail. If you're doing 50 pieces, you really don't want to burn six screens necessarily for it. If you can burn one and throw it on a digital squeegee and have it out the same day, it's you can give the customer different options, but it's amazing how screen printing has really evolved just in the last few years, and the combining of digital uh, methods with it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. So, screen printing equipment brands. Now, Pete, you are an M&R guy. And last week we were at the Long Beach Trade Show, and one of the very first booths you see, and one of the largest ones at the show, is M&R. And M&R is really well known for putting out some of the best equipment in the industry when it comes to screen printing, DTG printing, DTF printing, and digital squeegee, which again is a hybrid screen digital process. Um, Full disclosure, Pete, you're a big M&R guy, right?
Yeah, pretty much everything in my shop except for my embroidery and my DTF printer right now is M&R. And it's been a great partnership. And having the same equipment be in M&R or Rock or whatever brand you have, simplifies things and simplifies things when you need parts and service and that. And the other good thing about M&R for me is they're 30 miles from my shop. So if I need to get a tech, that's great. If I need to get parts, if I really need to get the parts, I can drive over and get them, or I'm one day UPS. So that's a big thing to consider when you're looking at equipment, where they're located at, what kind of support do they have with techs, with parts, and how quick you can get stuff. Because if you have a press go down and you got to get a job out, can you get those parts quickly?
Yep, and we are actually going to go tour the M&R facility sometime this year, and they have a 250,000 square foot facility uh, just outside of Chicago where they're manufacturing and assembling these products here in the States. I've never walked into a shop and heard a negative thing about an M&R piece of equipment. They're not the cheapest, but they're extremely well made. You know, when Apple first started coming out with their phones and everything, everyone was like, well, they're expensive, but nobody doubted that they were probably the best when they were the first smartphone. You get what you pay for, Pete. And I've the consistency and the brand loyalty of M&R is huge. If once you go blue, you don't start changing. You don't have blue and then green and red in the shop. Um, yeah. So M&R, think blue. Rock, think a light green. Anatol, think red. AWT, it's more of like a teal. Brown is brown, and Workhorse is again kind of a teal. It's kind of funny how they've each designated their colors, but yeah, once you go blue, you don't go back.
And the other thing to think about as equipment is, what's the resale value? A couple of these brands have very high resale value on them, and that might come into play as we grow. You might start off with like an 8 color press, but you find out you need a 12 color press, and you don't have room for that 8 color anymore. So you got to sell it. And what piece of equipment is going to have a good resale value? And you could find that online nowadays. You know what a piece of equipment costs new and what it's selling for used.
Pete, how, what's the lifespan of a press, do you think, nowadays? You know, let's not assume that somebody grows out of the size, but I mean, screen printing equipment often holds its value for a large amount of time because well, there is a lot of digital parts and so forth, but most parts can be replaced. So if you were to buy, an automatic press, how long do you think would you expect it to last?
I mean, there's guys I know that have presses that are 30, 40 years old. They've taken care of them. They can still get parts, and they still work. Do they have all the bells and whistles that the new presses have? No, but if you're just getting into the business and you see um, a 5 year old or a 10-year-old press without a lot of prints on it, that could be a great option. And there's companies in our industry that do nothing but sell, refurbish, and install presses. So it takes a little bit of the risk out of buying from some unknown, um, and not having anything backing them up. And actually, the leasing companies in our industry will finance those used presses through certain dealers that they know are going to put the press in and install, make sure it's a working press when they do it, which is a big thing. So
Oh yeah. I mean, again, some of these machines, they get pretty expensive, and 5 years old, it's not like a DTG or DTF machine with a bunch of CMYK print heads and just a bunch of chips in the machine, things that are just bound to break and become kind of obsolete. DTG, we quickly saw, the print heads got better, then the ink got cheaper for that print head, and that's why screen printing is very much so analog, and that's why it doesn't quickly die or become as obsolete as digital equipment that's always being updated a lot quicker. Um, so when we think of screen printing, I think a lot, one of the reasons I really wanted to do this webinar was talk about all of the pieces of equipment that are involved. And Pete, I mean, when we walk through your shop, you're a shop that we would consider to be very automated. And just think, you have the press area, and then you have the pre-press area. So we're going to start with the on-press equipment that we're typically using. One would be the actual press itself. And there are essentially three types of presses. There's a manual press, there's an automatic press, and then there's the digital squeegee, which is a different type of automatic press. So, Pete, um, manuals. Do you have any manual presses in your shop?
No, I haven't had a manual in probably about 6 to 8 years. I mean, if we have 24-piece order or 12-piece order, we'll run it on automatic. So,
Okay. But that would be, a lot of shops still have a manual in the corner, really for just those low run jobs, right? I mean, that's when you really want a manual potentially is a low run.
yes, there's a lot of times I wish I still kind of had a manual for, say, like doing screen printed jacket backs with a hold down or some other stuff that's hard to get onto a automatic. But then other times a lot of the work that we can't do on automatic, I'm kind of glad I'm not doing, because with contract, we got our niche, and I think we do a good job with that.
No, makes sense. Um, and again, we're going to break down more of the difference between a manual and an automatic and when you want to go with which one. But then you also in your shop have a digital squeegee machine. So can you tell us a little bit how that press operates?
We have two of those. One's on a 14 and one's on an 18 color press, and it's a hybrid. It's a screen printed underbase and top coat with the digital print. But you could also do PMS colors with it that might be hard to get to digitally, or special effects things like glitters and stuff like that on the press. So basically, you're setting up your underbase to be screen printed, and then that's dried, and you do your digital, and then you do a top coat, and sometimes there's other inks that are thrown in there, but it works out really good. Like, say if you got 72 to 150 pieces in it that are 6 to 10 colors, even if it's spot colors, um, we could do that on the digital squeegee more efficiently than burning all those screens. But then where it really shines is when you do photographic work or high colors or a lot of half tones is where it's really great. But
And Pete, you brought up a great point. You can still drop spot colors with a digital squeegee press. So again, a digital print head is going to have CMYK, and CMYK cannot create every color. I mean, it just has some limitations compared to being able to mix with pigments a specific spot color that you want to print. If you're working with a name brand, they're going to have a very specific Pantone color that it has to look like. And sometimes CMYK is not the route to go. So you'll drop that spot. Again, digital print heads aren't shooting out glitter, reflective ink, puff. You're going to have to screen print with that. Um, but one thing I initially had totally forgotten when I first started seeing digital squeegee presses is the fact that it still can be treated as if it's a normal auto. You don't have to use the digital portion in it to complete a job. It's just you have the ability to, if need be.
correct. Yeah,
Prior,
we're working on a job right now that's digital squeegee with it's going to have a gold metallic ink, and then it's going to have crystallina over parts of the print on top of it. So it's going to be really a cool piece once it's done.
I wonder if you printed a white Crystalina, if you could CMYK over it and get that, full color look.
On top of the crystalline or underneath it?
Yeah, on top of it.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to, you only have so much clearance, so you'd have to, we haven't tried that, but I'd like to see somebody try it on their press.
Let somebody else try it. And that's pretty good, Pete. Um, Dryers, Pete. So obviously we have the press doing the actual printing. Once we're done printing, we pull the product off the press and we have to cure the ink. And that's going to be done on a conveyor dryer. Anybody who walks into a shop and has never seen one, they always say, "Oh, you got a pizza oven." So these dryers need a lot of electricity or a lot of power. So you can either be using electricity or natural gas. Um, Pete, what are you using in your shop as far as the way you power a dryer?
When we started out off, we had an electric dryer because of the price, but once you start running that thing all day and every day, a gas it becomes less expensive because you'll save a lot of money on electricity compared to gas. So our three dryers are all gas dryers now.
And you brought up a great point there because I didn't realize this initially. A gas dryer is has a higher initial price point, to purchase, but then long run, it's going to save you more on you're going to have a lower gas bill than you would electric bill if you were electric. All right. But before we're ready to actually take the shirt and put it on the conveyor dryer, sometimes we need to um, use a flash unit to dry the ink to the touch before we lay down another color. So in like your digital squeegee or really any automatic pressing, typically if you do a white underbase, you're going to flash it, right, Pete, so that it's a little bit dry, and then we can start dropping colors on so it doesn't all bleed together.
After the white underbase and even after some other colors, if you're doing a 6 or 8 color print, a lot of times you're flashing if you have the room on your press every couple of colors. You have the option
And when we,
if you have
well,
like
just gonna
go on.
sorry, Pete, go ahead.
I was gonna say if you have like a 14 or 16 color press, you're gonna have your underbase. You're gonna flash. Well, you're probably gonna have some type of roller or hothead in there to flatten down the fibers. But after 2 or 3 colors, a lot of times if you have the room, you're gonna flash to keep it crisp as much as you can.
Pete, you brought up another great point. So you said you have a 16 head for your digital squeegee, but you don't print 16 colors with that because some of those heads need a flash dryer or something to flatten out the fibers. So out of 16 heads, how many of those might be printable on an average day for an average order?
Well, we got a 14 and an 18. And a 14, I think we maybe have 6 heads, depending on how many flashes we need. But the digital squeegee itself takes up 2 stations,
That's what I thought. Okay.
and you got cool down stations, and then depending on what you're doing with rollers to either flatten down the fibers on the shirt or the print, all those take up stations also.
That's really important to keep in mind when selecting a press. Don't think that you get a 10 head press, you can print 10 colors. That's not true. Um, there's always going to be fewer amounts of colors you can drop for heads on the machine. Um, all right, Pete, let's talk about pre-press because you can have the best equipment for printing, but really, screen printing is all about the setup, right? I mean, it's if you don't have a good screen, whether it be you didn't properly reclaim it or you didn't properly develop it, you're going to battle it on the press. So when it comes to the pre-press, each shop can have a couple different things, but almost every shop has an exposure unit. That's where we're going to expose either um, a screen that's gone through a computer to screen, which we're going to talk about in a second, or it has a film positive taped to it and we're exposing that. So almost every shop has an exposure unit. And then, like 10 or so years ago, computer to screen started coming out. And that's what we see here, in which this machine is going to print directly onto the screen the positive that we're going to then expose. Pete, you have a computer to screen in your shop, correct?
Correct.
You love it?
Oh yeah, I mean, pre-press is probably one of the not the sexiest thing in your shop, but the ROI on that and some of the other equipment you're going to get into with pre-press pays off so fast. And on the exposure unit with the printer, you get really good screens out consistently and quickly. And then with some of the other pre-press stuff, the ROI is like super fast. I mean, when we switched over, we had 6 people in that department and they couldn't keep up. And then as soon as we switched over, we had 2 people in that department with time on their hands. And that was probably about 6, 8 years ago when we added all that stuff, all that equipment.
Yeah, I thought I had it on here, Pete. We're going to talk a little bit later about they now have the computer to screen with an exposure unit, and you don't even have to have those two different pieces of equipment. It's kind of all in one. Um, but Pete, correct me wrong, the computer to screen really helps with fine details and registration once you're going to the press. And again, that your press, you always want it spinning. So the quicker you can make it register better and the less having problems with the screen once you're on there, the better. You want to be able to set up and tear down as quickly as possible. Um, I also, when I walked through your shop, you had some other cool toys. So, like you had an ink mixer. You know, we can manually mix ink, but it is nice to have an auto ink mixer in which we can dump pigments or uh, bases or additives and then have it quickly mixed together. Uh, Pete, I saw a few of these last week at the show, squeegee and flood bar cleaners. Um, Again, like you said, the pre-press is and post-press is messy and just not fun. It's not the sexy part of the process. So having some of the automation tools to make cleaning and mixing obviously are always nice. Automatic screen coaters. These seem to be getting a lot more popular when I walk through a shop. Um, that's probably my favorite thing to do out of all of the pre-press things. It's gratifying for me to actually manually coat something. Although if I could push a button, I'm never going to turn that down. But automatic screen coating, even just the consistency of having the same amount of emulsion every time, is going to make exposing the screen even that much more consistent. Automation. I mean, you were a very much so automated shop. I don't know. Did you have an automatic screen rinser? So after we exposed the screen, did you have an automatic rinser to rinse it out?
Yeah, the person that uses the iMage also is coating screens and also rinsing them out. And ours will rinse out 4 at a time. So he's throwing the screen in the iMage, it's printing, getting exposed, putting the screens in the washer to blow out and wash out, and then getting them to dry and taping them up for the printers, and doing that circle. Then we have one guy that's just reclaiming and that and drying.
So, we think about automatic rinsing. So when we expose a screen, you then have to wash it out, obviously. You're developing it. When you're using a power washer, you can get too close and lose details and all other types of problems. That automatic screen rinser again takes out that human error, um, really nice, and that is only used for rinsing screens. It's very clean in there. It is not where you are reclaiming screens. That's a totally different section, so we can keep both areas really kind of clean and dirty. Um, Automatic squeegee and flood bar cleaner, like I said, and then automatic screen reclaiming system. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit because I know you really liked getting that piece of equipment in your shop, because that is truly the worst part, is the actual reclaim. Um, Purchasing factors, Pete. So obviously, if we all could afford an auto and we all had the space, we'd go auto. But we all don't have that type of money, that type of space, the power that's necessary to run that equipment. The first factor is budget. I mean, you have to be able to afford the equipment. Space, like I said, you have to be able to fit it in a space, and you got to be able to properly get around it, swap screens. Power supply. Again, Pete, you have those dryers. You probably have, when you were all electric, you had to have a lot of electricity being ran to your facility.
And we still do because everything's still runs off of electric, even if it's
Yeah, even if it's a
pilot.
dryer, that's gas.
Yeah, the presses aren't all run off of compressors, and everything else uses a lot of electric in the building.
Yeah, you don't have 200 amps ran to your building. You have a lot. Um, and then turnaround speed. You're the same day tease guy. You can't have a manual press and be pumping out shirts same day. You need to be automated, obviously. So that's going to be obviously very important. Or what is your niche? Are you quoting a month and you can afford to be slow and use a manual, or do we need to be fast? Um, Also, the product offering, like you said earlier, Pete, there's some things that are easier to do on a manual than that are harder to do on an auto, and vice versa. So the products that you're even offering to your customers will dictate what type of press you want to go with. And hand in hand, those would be your customers' demands. All right, what to consider when purchasing the equipment? We talked earlier about the price value, and you were mentioning some brands just hold better value, resale value. So you get what you pay for. I think one of the best things you can ever do when making a purchase decision is to talk to those in the industry who have an unbiased opinion. Um, there's a lot of groups out there. I like to use the DecoNetwork Facebook group when I'm thinking about buying a new piece of equipment. I'm trying to get feedback on a certain brand, and it's helped me make an informed decision. You can do this through groups like Shirt Lab Tribe. If you're part of their group, you're going to be able to avoid some mistakes by talking to people who've been in your shoes and either love the decision they made or want to share with you the nightmare and help you avoid going down that same path. Um, but price value, even Pete, you brought up a great point. Use some of those third party groups that list used equipment, and you can get an idea. Okay, right now this is the new price. This is the used price. Does it keep it? Um, the brand reputation and reliability, again, I've never heard anybody regret buying M&R. It is, again, not the cheapest, but wow, are they loved. Um, you, I'd always have confidence to go in M&R. I can't speak for every brand. I don't have them all. I don't even have an M&R piece of equipment in my shop. But the shops that I've talked to, that I visited, like yours, Pete, only great things. And it's nice looking equipment. I gotta like what I'm looking at if I'm gonna be on it or near it or expect my employees to be near it. And that blue is definitely nice. Installation and support. Pete, you brought up a great point. If you get used equipment, you definitely want somebody to install it and confirm it's working without any problems. If you bought new equipment, you'd expect it to be installed and have some tech support afterward. Um, Pete, do you even do demonstrations sometimes for M&R at your shop?
Yeah, we have, especially when the digital squeegee first launched, they would bring a lot of people out because we were so close to them. So they'd bring people out that were coming to look at that press, and they know when they walk into a factory that it's staged. They want to make sure the design's running, that there's no problems. So a lot of times they would get requests to go to a shop that's got some ink on the floor and that's running real jobs, and we're running real jobs, and we were running multiple digital squeegee jobs a day, so they could see them go up and come down if it was a shorter run, and just watch us do it, and then kind of ask some of the people questions too.
Yeah, and again, the I when I first bought my DTG machine 12 years ago, I went and saw the machine actually in action at a shop. And most of your dealers of this equipment, they know somebody fairly close to you that has a piece of equipment the exact same or something you're in the market for, and they often will have that connection to let you visit their shop. So if you can really see the equipment in action in a shop and ask questions to that shop owner or production manager, I mean that's a big win because you're going to get that again unbiased opinion, hopefully, and see it for yourself. Whenever you go to a trade show and you're watching the equipment run and everything, it's just not it's not the same as seeing it in an everyday atmosphere. Um, so whenever you can visit a shop that has it for something you're looking at, that's great. Um, Warranty. Pete, let's not talk digital squeegee, but if you buy an automatic press, do you know if it comes with much of a warranty? I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces, and somebody can really, run it into the ground if they're not treating it properly. But do most presses have a warranty?
They do, and I think ours is a couple of years, but you really don't have too many problems um, with a lot of equipment for the first few years. I think we have one press that's going on 10 years, and we've replaced a couple minor things on it. You know,
Okay. Well, again,
so
having a good warranty on a press that's bound to break overnight, doesn't do you a lot of good. I'd rather
yeah.
have something that was well built with, a shorter warranty. Um, so,
In the digital stuff, you probably have more issues with because print heads are considered consumables. So you are replacing those, especially if you're doing a lot of printing on them. You'll see, uh, more upkeep with those that type of equipment. But your screen printing equipment and embroidery equipment, they just keep running. My embroidery equipment, I doubt if I put in 500 or $1,000 per machine over 10 years. It just stuff just runs, especially if you got good people running it.
yep. I mean, it's like buying a car. If you redline, you just push it to the max all the time, that thing is not going to last as long. But if you take care of it and, do the proper maintenance, it'll last. All right, Pete, how do we determine, if we're in the market for a press, how do we select how many stations and heads we're going to need? So we talked just a little bit earlier, maybe on a, I think you said 14 station press, sometimes you only use six for like the digital squeegee or something. But, how do you go about making a decision for just a typical auto? Um, what goes into that thinking?
Well, if you're going from a manual to auto, you're probably on a 4 or 6 color manual, and you're probably doing anywhere from one color to maybe 4 or 5 colors on that. But um, once you get that automatic, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to produce a lot more work faster, and jobs that didn't look attractive on a manual, like a 5 color job on a manual, if you're pushing the squeegee, probably doesn't look all that attractive because it's a lot of work. All of a sudden, it looks attractive. Always try to get a couple more colors than what you have or what you think you need, because it's always better to have them. I think I think the cost is maybe if you're buying new, maybe $10,000 a head on an automatic, but don't buy the bare minimum because you're gonna regret it, and it's a big investment no matter what. So if you think, oh, I just need a 6-color automatic, I think the minimum's 8, but look at if are you doing 4-color work? Do you have the opportunity to do 6-color work? Can you upsell and help pay for that?
No, makes a lot of sense. And you can't just add heads to one of these pieces of equipment. Once you buy that type, that's it. It cannot be adjusted to add more like some of the manual presses are set up to be able to do. Um,
Right.
so yeah, they go. It's easier to overshoot and have that in your back pocket to be able to, like I said, upcharge or upsell and do special things than it is to be in a situation. Um, yeah, and that's why, Pete. What I love about our industry, I mean, there's many things, but one thing is the ability to outsource to a contract decorator. So a shop like mine, maybe we can do a 4-color on a manual, but I can't do that 8-color. I don't have an auto, and maybe it's a high run job. It's way out of my league based on my equipment. It's real easy to connect with a contract decorator, outsource orders to them, and then build up your demand and learn from what your customers are asking for. And then you can make, that better informed decision as to what piece of equipment you need to buy. Build up the demand, outsource it, make some less money, and then think about bringing it in house and taking on the headache yourself.
Or continue to outsource. I mean, we do a lot of contract work for other screen printers, and all we do for them is digital work. So, they have no intention of buying a digital piece of equipment, but they want to offer it, you know.
Yep. I mean, it's just my opinion, and I am not a screen printing expert. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of shops. To me, when it comes to screen printing is never going to die. It is always going to be the most popular way to print a t-shirt. But what we have seen in the last 10 years between DTG, Digital Squeegee, and now DTF. I mean, DTF has impacted the industry, I think, unlike anything else has before it. I mean, at least in the last 15 years when we started going more digital, I see screen printing really revolving around contract decorating. And it's so easy to just get into printing shirts, buying a DTF printer, which somebody can master within a couple days, versus screen printing. To be good with it, it's a really, it's a skill. It's not, you can't just put somebody on press overnight and run a shop without knowing what they're doing and mastering that skill versus something like DTF. It's so easy to offer, to print, to press, but then you get that big order or whatever, and we're going to outsource it to somebody to screen print. Get my charger, Levi. Um, so when to purchase manual screen printing equipment? So those are those low run orders, right? Right, Pete?
Well, Ron, or I mean, if it's just you and a couple other people, I mean, we were doing on our manuals, 300 pieces, 500 pieces until we got our first automatic. Um, but generally, if you have an automatic and a manual, you're gonna be doing smaller runs. You might be doing your leg and sleeve prints on there. You're gonna probably do your bag prints on there if you're not doing those DTF. It's going to give you your flexibility. You also use your manual press to do pre-production proofs. Instead of tying up an automatic, now you have the option to just set it up on a manual with one guy instead of a team running the pre-pro on and tying up an automatic for a couple hours.
No, makes a lot of sense. Um, Limited space, they're a lot smaller, right? Typically.
Correct.
If you're on a budget, obviously they're significantly cheaper. Um, there's a lot less electricity. I mean, the actual press on a manual is nothing compared to an auto, which is obviously pulling a lot of juice. Okay, automatic presses. There's obviously benefits. The first one being speed. Pete, if you are on an automatic press, and let's not think digital squeegee, let's just think straight auto. How many how many shirts can you print an hour?
You know, if the guys are averaging 400 or 500 prints an hour, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's averaging in your setup, takedown, and everything else. Because you know a lot of these presses can print a lot faster than that, but they do that all day and maybe sacrifice looking at the print as it's coming off the press. That's what you're going to give up going that much faster.
400 to 500 shirts an hour, though. And again, when we're saying 400 to 500, that's even if it's like an 8 color job, right? Because when you're printing with an auto, every color, every station is printing a color or doing something, whether it be cool down, flashing, flattening the fibers, something's happening at all times. When you're doing a manual, you print a color and then you rotate the station to then come down to print the next color. It's, yeah, I mean, it's significantly faster. Um, Obviously, you get a more consistent print, right, Pete? Because everything has that consistent pressure, angle, speed that it's being printed. When you're manually printing, you have a lot of human error being introduced. And again, you could be at a different squeegee angle, or you have different amount of pressure, and then that could throw off your registration. So consistency, obviously, and then the labor less intensive. Manual printing, I mean, you will feel it in your forearms and your wrist. And you can't expect somebody to be manually printing for 8 hours a day and be able to physically do it. Um, so these are some of the reasons I assume that you obviously have gone all auto in your shop.
Correct. Yeah, for the increased production, but also the consistency on the prints. You know, it's the same thing with the pre-press. You know, if you're coating automatic and you're using an eye image and a wash up, all those are consistent. And if you go to rerun the job, it should pretty much set up the same way as the first time, you know?
Yep. I mean, again, automation, obviously not the cheapest thing, but it's going to save you time in other places and opportunity cost. All right. So let's talk about the digital squeegee a little bit. Pretty cool technology. I think M&R and Rock are the only two manufacturers who actually offer this. And so, Pete, you have two of these, you said. And this is your digital squeegee. So this is our digital print head that takes up two stations. So you will print a white underbase before, and then you'll make sure that that white is dry. You may drop spot color before digital or after digital. Is that correct, Pete?
Usually after.
Usually after. Okay. And did you say you also print a clear coat afterward?
A clear coat, and then a lot of times like maybe a highlight white, like when you're screen printing, you have a thin underbase, like that would be like a primer on a wall, so it's not super opaque, and then you put your colors on top of it, and then wherever you need a nice bright white, you would come back and hit it with white again. So you could be screen printing 3 colors, and then if you have any specialty inks or spot colors you need to hit, You could also add that in there. So like on our 14 color press, between the digital squeegee, the roller, the hothead, the lay down the fibers, and everything else, we don't have too many extra stations after you put everything together. Where on our 18 color, we got a few more heads to be able to add if we need to.
Okay. No, and again, when I first walked into your shop, I totally it hit me when I was standing at the press for about a minute to be like, this is just an auto with a digital head. There's no reason not to think that you can just treat it like a normal auto and you have this in your back pocket to pull out when you want. Um, so yeah, you if you're thinking about going auto, and sometimes you may want that extra ability to drop a full color image on there, digital squeegee, uh, pretty cool. That what's the name of this machine though? It's not just called digital squeegee. What does M&R call it?
They call the digital part the digital squeegee, and that press, the automatic is a striker with it. So you can do an oval press or you can do a round press with it. I think most of them they're selling now are on oval presses.
Okay. Um, and so obviously you'll do spot process printing. You'll drop something like I said, a highlight white, a glitter, metallic, something that you can't do with the CMYK digital head.
Correct.
All right. I didn't see one of these in your shop, but I have seen a couple in other shops. So I was at a shop in Miami, and they were all M&R. And gosh, was he loyal about it. Um, and he had one of these sleeve tag presses. So they were using a digital squeegee, and they were printing on a white shirt, a CMYK print. It was looking great. And then it had a sleeve of essentially almost the same logo, but a few colors less. So it was really cool. They were using the sleeve right after the shirt came out of the dryer and was cured to print on there. Pete, have you ever done any sleeve printing, tag printing with a press like this? Or, is it a nightmare to do on an auto compared to having a machine like this? What are your thoughts?
Um, so we don't have one of those presses. We have what's called a tag along, and you put the shirt on, and it kind of um, maneuvers the shirt so it gets it'll bring the neck part up, and you can actually print the front at the same time. And then when it's done, it'll the tag part will lower down. It's pretty cool. But we use that for tags, and then we have sleeve and leg pallets that we use. But I don't use one of those at this time. And what I've seen lately too with the evolution of DTF is a lot of people are DTFing neck tags, and then they're able to offer a multicolored neck tag for the price or less than a one color screen print on a neck tag.
It's funny in our industry, a customer will come to us and they will think a sleeve print should cost less because it's a smaller print than the front. And it's actually nowhere close to being that. The printing a sleeve or a neck is a pain compared to the printing the front of a shirt. So sometimes having, a tool like this, if it's all the time, would be the way to go. Flatbed press. So when I screen print in my shop, Pete, I print plastisol transfers. You don't typically print, you can on a carousel press. You typically do it on a flatbed like this. And it has a vacuum underneath. And obviously it's more like a clamshell of coming down and then printing one color at a time. All right, Pete, conveyor dryers. How we select the right conveyor dryer. One would be space. I mean, they get big. Your dryer was very big. At least, I mean, you had multiple. Um, Power, like we said, if you have natural gas, you're probably going to want to look at that route. Um, or if you go the power, if you don't, you got to make sure you can have the right electricity to it. Um, and then the size of the actual presses. So, Pete, the size of the dryer you purchase is really based on the type of printing press that you purchase, right? I mean, you don't want to buy a dryer that, if your press can print 500 shirts an hour, you better have a dryer that can dry 500 shirts an hour. Otherwise, you're going to have a bottleneck where you shouldn't. Um, do you ever use one dryer? Do you ever position it in a spot so that multiple presses can feed to it at once?
Yeah, all our automatics, uh, all our dryers have multiple presses on them. And you'll even see that with like a shop that may be manual. They'll have, maybe 3 or 4 manuals on the dryer with a longer belt, especially if they're doing small runs like uniforms where it's like 8 pieces or 15 pieces, but they'll have a bunch of manuals and they'll just have a longer belt. Or, like we have two autos on each automatic. And if you're buying a new dryer and you're able to do it, they have split belt dryers with different heat on each side
Yep.
of the dryer. So if you're putting water base on one side and plastisol on the other side, or bags on one side and t-shirts on the other side, you're able to do that. Because the worst thing, or what's hard, is if you're having to use all those presses every day, and then you got a bag job and you can't print anything on the other press because you only have one belt going through at one temperature.
Yep. When I was in that Miami shop, they had a dryer at least this long. I mean, it was long, and it had 2 or 3 belts, and it was
Yeah,
really cool how they could do that. Another thing is some of these presses, not to say this is what you want to be thinking about at times, but sometimes they actually can run in the opposite direction. So you can have a press on either end, and sometimes, you just need to be able to feed it the other way. Maybe not in a shop probably like yours, but we've gotten creative in mine. Sometimes I've got the flatbed, and we're printing transfers going in one direction, and then at the end of the day, hey, we're going to use the carousel to manually screen print directly onto the garment and send it the opposite. Um, some of these dryers also have what's called forced air, right, Pete? So if you're doing like water based, you can't just use just any conveyor dryer. You often want some air circulation to properly cure. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, you need the air to be moving around, and you also need a much longer tunnel. So if you're thinking about doing water-based printing, make sure you talk to whoever you're buying your dryer from and let them know that, because you could, run a plastisol print through the dryer in a couple minutes, but your water-based could take, 5 minutes or longer. So you got to make sure you have, if you could fit it and afford it, a longer dryer for that. So when you are talking about equipment, make sure you tell the people that you're buying it from, what kind of work you're doing, what kind of work you want to do, and so they can get you into the right dryer. Like you said, the last thing you want to do is spend a bunch of money on a printer and then get all this work that you want to, and then you have a huge bottleneck on the dryer.
And it sounds like, I think you would agree, Pete, it's better to buy a dryer that's overkill for your press, because you never know if you're going to have another one feeding it at some point, or you upgrade that press maybe down the line, and you don't have to do the dryer as well. But yeah, the tunnel that Pete was referring to is the chamber. And look at it this way: would you rather eat food that was slowly baked or smoked? It's going to have that rich flavor. Or do you like something that's just thrown in the microwave and heated up real quick? There's benefits, and really you have to sometimes slowly cure the ink in the chamber. You don't want it to be just a quick flash of high heat. it may not properly cure it, and you could have other problems like dye migration, um, scorching the ink, and so forth.
And
Obviously, like you're talking about, the type of ink used is going to
yeah,
dictate.
and with the M&R dryers, and I'm not sure if any of the other brands are this way, but you can add on to them in 4 foot increments. So say like you're starting out and you got, you know, two manuals and an automatic or two manuals on it, but you think, well, in a couple of years I'm moving to a bigger shop. You might not necessarily have to get a whole new dryer. You could add on a couple 4 foot sections of heat, and that dryer you have isn't obsolete anymore. You're going to have to get a belt that's a little bit more, maybe a couple extra legs. But you know, that's we've done that to our dryers a couple of times where we've added on sections
That's
and
cool.
spread heat and stuff like that.
That's really cool, Pete. So you can, wow, it's like a Lego. I want to add
Yeah.
another one, make it bigger. Sweet. All right, flash units. I had no idea there were so many flash units, and these flash units I'm showing, Pete, these are just M&R flash units. Now, some of them are obviously kind of geared towards a manual versus an auto. Um, can you give us a little bit of information about, how to choose the right flash unit? I assume the tech is typically who really talks with you and like, this is what you want. Um, but yeah, what's the difference in some of these?
So, you know, like when you get into automatics, it's mostly the three to the right, the Reno, and the Habanero. And the Reno is great on like the 6 and 8 color presses. You really have to watch it. But if you're on a manual press, you're used to watching your flash. The other um, flashes are a lot more automated, where they're going to pick up the pallet temperature and also the time, and so you're going to have a lot less issues with scorching shirts and burning shirts or under cure and over cure. But it's a big price difference. The Reno, I think when we got our press a few years back, it was maybe $1,000 or something. There's not much to it. But then the habanero in it, I want to say is at least 5 times that. But you get a lot more automation and a lot more control with that. So that's the big thing with those.
No, I didn't realize they got this expensive. But then you start to realize what all it can do. I mean, anybody who ever is manual screen printed, I remember when I first bought my first manual, the tech told me, you are at some point going to forget that there's a shirt underneath that flash dryer, and you're going to almost catch something on fire. And it's a fact. I mean, flash dryers, they throw off a lot of heat. They can be dangerous. Um, so spending the right amount of money on something that's automated and doesn't overcure something or doesn't over dry it, because you're not trying to cure with the flash unit. You're just trying to dry it so we can continue to lay down colors, and then we let the conveyor dryer truly cure it. Um, but yeah, there's not just one flash dryer that does um, a job. You get what you pay for, and you can buy something a little bit nicer, a little bit more automated. Obviously, it's going to come down to your budget. But if you're spending a bunch of money on the press, there's no reason to go cheap on the flash unit. You may regret that for sure. Um, all right, Pete. I didn't see these in your shop. I saw these on M&Rs. I thought they were cool. Auto foggers. So if you're doing a lot of water-based and discharge printing, that ink will dry when in the air. It's water-based. It needs to have some humidity. Plastisol only dries when it starts to getting close to that 320 degrees. So autofoggers are often done again with like a water-based type of ink, and then the auto shirt unloader. I mean, if you are determined to get to 500 plus shirts an hour, you might need one of these things. So, because your employee can't just be grabbing them, like you said, Pete, 500 a day, an hour. I mean, can you imagine what your arms would feel like pulling 4,000 shirts off the press for the day?
Yeah, they get used to it. The auto unloader that M&R just came out with also scans the shirt and does QC also.
Yes,
Um,
I knew that.
yeah, so that's a pretty cool thing, and it does take up a lot of room. So if you're tight for space, the auto unloader does take up a lot of space. But that's another thing that with the way the labor market was the last couple of years, and people having a hard time getting bodies into their shop, if you got an auto loader, the payback I think was maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And then you're talking about having one person at the end of the dryer and then one person load and unload. Now, if you got the camera system, I don't know anybody that's got it, but M&R says it's working. And the only reason that I question it is it's new technology, but it scans what you would call your first test print or perfect print, and then it looks at each print as the auto unloader's taking them off and catches things, which is really cool. The
I
auto
think that is
fabric,
really cool.
yeah, the auto
Wow.
fabric folder we used to have, but we had to button up our shop pretty much when we added the Polaris and more DTG presses and DTF presses because you have to have relatively high humidity in
Ah,
your shop to
yep.
run digital. So we were running pretty much. We were running a consistent temperature. We're running a consistent temperature all year because the shop's air conditioned. Plus, with all the humidifiers in the shop, um, all the guys have a pretty good complexion now. So, of all
Yeah, no,
the moisture.
that quality control camera capability, that's really powerful. Just being able to print fast is one thing. You need to be able to print fast quality, because your customer doesn't care how quickly you printed it. They care about the quality. Um, so yeah, I am interested to see that in person. You'll have to get one, Pete, so I can see.
I think they were running it at ISS a couple weeks ago. So I don't know if they're going to do it on the East Coast one, but it does a lot better than say the human eye does at 400 or 500 shirts an hour.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure. Um, all right, couple other things, and you've brought up the fabric compression system. I've seen one of these auto flockers at a shop before. They're pretty cool. You can essentially take a station and turn it into a flocking station. So if you ever seen flock, you can cut flock, and there's a lot of different ways you can apply flock, but there's a way that you can print ink, and then the flocker will essentially apply the flock over the ink, and you have that fuzzy look and feel. Um, Sounds like a nightmare, but I've seen it. Pretty cool. Um, and then the fabric compression system. Do most of your presses have this so that it flattens out the fiber before you print?
yeah. The automatics, it's a great thing because it's actually like ironing the shirt beforehand. Where the rollers do a nice job, but this is like a heated roller type apparatus that really takes the wrinkles out and really lays the fibers down nicely.
Yeah, because you load it, and then it's common that this is the one of the first things that happens. It gets the wrinkles out, takes out some of the moisture, and you just think about shirts. It's got a lot of it's fiber. It's not flat. So yeah, I see tons of benefits in it. Something you aren't going to be using on a manual press. Um, but an automatic, yeah, it's you're going to get better results if your fabric is obviously flat and has been essentially ironed. Okay, squeegee and flood bar cleaner. You have one, Pete?
I don't have one yet. I know M&R and a couple other companies have them out. I think EasyWay just came out with one, and I hear they're great. They don't uh, do it 100%, but some shops could have one person doing nothing but cleaning squeegees all day. So if this could help in that department, looks like a good thing. I think M&R's has only been out 2, 3 years, and I think EasyWay just launched theirs at the show at ISS a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken.
So did Saudi. Saudi came out one
Oh,
then
it's
as
got one.
well. It seemed like they're getting popular. Automation, Pete, since COVID, it's so hard to find somebody who wants to work. And these jobs that revolve around cleaning have the most turnover. So I've seen more and more shops spending money on automation so they don't, because that automation piece of equipment isn't going to just one day say I don't feel like working anymore and quit on you. So it's funny. I just see more and more automation when it comes to the cleaning, especially these flood bars and the inline cleaning system we're going to talk about here in a minute. What about ink mixing? I thought I saw one of these in your shop.
Yeah, we have one of those, and as you mentioned, they're great for mixing inks and mixing colors. The other thing they're used for is like, especially if you're in the Midwest or somewhere that gets colder, you could put your white ink on it and keep the ink loose, so it's not going into the press, and it's really stiff to start off with. There's people that put 5 gallons on and let it run all day, and that way when they go to use it on different presses, it's super creamy.
Yeah, yeah. I learned that the hard way when I first started screen printing. You can't just like grab a bucket off the shelf in December and it's nice and, it's not as malleable and you got to work it. So, yeah, it'll make life easier. Those ink mixers, starting to see them more at shows. Automatic screen coaters, same thing. I'm starting to see more of these each year. Screen rinsers. Do you have an automatic coater or just a screen rinser, Pete?
We got both of those, yeah.
Okay.
And the payback on that equipment and Ecotex, which does the reclaiming, is incredibly fast, and it's the hardest jobs to fill in your shop. So they're great,
Yeah.
and you add the eye image to those other three pieces, and you get really good consistency with what you're putting out.
Yeah. So back to your eye image. So we have the computer to screen, abbreviated CTS. Um, it should be CTS, not CST. And then exposure unit. And now we have the computer to screens with an exposure unit. So it's essentially the second version where it'll print it and then come back here and actually expose it. You have the old classic computer to screen, is that correct? Or do you have the all in one?
I have the all-in-one, and I know people prefer one or the other. We like it all in one because when they put it in, it prints and then exposes in a few seconds. They're really able to crank during the day.
Wow. And I bet you have a bunch of presets in here, like it knows what mesh count and how many coats of emulsion, and it exposes it always the correct amount of time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, again, automation. There's so much less human error to that can make it go wrong. All right, Pete, I know you absolutely love yours. Again, the worst part of all of the cleaning is the actual reclaiming. And when you have one of these inline automatic cleaning and reclaim, what it first chamber, it's removing the ink, and then it's going to remove the emulsion, and then it's going to essentially give it that final rinse through, and we're going to be clean by the end. Is that the
yeah.
gist of it?
That's the gist of it. A lot of times you're doing a quick power wash to get out a couple little spots here and there. And then there's a lot of systems out. not M&R and Easy Way and probably Saudi have systems that aren't that big. They might only be one or two compartments. So, because you look at that thing and it's 20 foot long, not everybody's got 20-foot long to put in, but they might be able to spare like 8 foot and still get most of the benefits out of it.
Yeah. Again, the out of all the pieces of equipment that I've seen, become really popular, these definitely. Also pull a lot of juice. We stopped by Saudi's booth and made a pretty cool video on theirs that we're going to be releasing. But uh, Pete, um, you bring a lot of wisdom to this webinar. I hope that our viewers uh, can make again a little bit better of an informed purchasing decision based on watching this. And one of the things I really got from it, Pete, was just think about the future. Don't think just now. What are you going to need later on potentially? What are you thinking of? Where are you thinking about taking your business? Um, and again, keep digital in mind. I I, I'm one that 5 years ago, Pete, I would have told you I really want to be getting an M&R auto set up here in the near future. Now, after doing all the consulting I've done, I've learned a lot about there's a lot of contract decorators who will print very quickly at a really great price, just like you do at same day tees, where I'd kind of rather stick in the digital world and outsource, the screen printing because it's a lot to take on. And before you ever pull the trigger on, getting into something like screen printing and buying it, it's just always a good idea. Find a contract decorator or two that you can build a relationship with, send them orders, build up your demand, learn from what your customers are demanding, and then you're going to be able to make a purchase and start running with it quickly. Um, but even Pete, contract decorating, even once you have equipment, you want to have somebody to pick you up if you ever go down. Or, we're in the flu season. I feel like everybody gets sick and you could have a whole department wiped out. Sometimes you need that contract decorator. And on DecoNetwork, we do have the outsourced production feature where you can connect to shops like Pete's and be able to funnel orders to them. Pete, you're a PSST decorator, which means you do a lot of fulfillment for SanMar users and you buy a lot of SanMar products. Um, Pete, if you also do a lot of drop shipping as well, right? I mean, if somebody outsourced an order to you, your shop would white label ship it to the end consumer, correct?
That's mostly what we do. We do work for other either printers or ASI, PPAI licensed goods, and then we would drop ship it to wherever they need it shipped to. So we do that every day.
And lastly, Pete, same day tees. Um, if when you're screen printing, if you can ever, do something unique, what Pete's doing is he specializes in quick turnaround. Not everybody can do that. That makes him unique. Sometimes a screen print shop will offer those special effects that others don't want to go near. But again, check out same day tees. If you're ever in a bind or you have a customer that wants to get an order out super fast, Pete actually has a lot of product on hand and can get it out extremely quickly for digital and screen printing. A little bit longer of a time, but Pete, somebody could hit you up and say, I need 500 shirts printed. Can you get it out in 3 to 5 days?
Well, we could get it out same day if we have it by 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Wow,
that's no
that,
problem. That's what we do.
that's
So
living up to the name.
yeah, that's what we do every day. So we're
All right, Pete.
part psychiatrist and part printer. When somebody calls up and they need 50 shirts or 5,000 shirts in a day, they're usually a little frantic. So we need to bring them down a couple levels and then work on the order.
Psychiatrist slash printer. That's pretty good, Pete. Well, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we can do another one of these. Again, you bring that wealth of knowledge And again, everybody, check out Same Day Tees and use them as a contract, fulfiller when you need it quickly or whenever you just, again, can't handle an order. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Pete.
Zach. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, everybody. Take care. Bye.